He arrived without a ping, a call, or even the whisper of tires in the driveway. For years he'd run Whittaker Systems from glass towers, measuring love in invoices and authorizations. Today, with no assistant and no plan, he touched the old brass doorknob of his father's house and stepped into air that smelled like coffee and lemon polish. "Dad," he called. A murmur floated from the back hallway, the faintest wheeze of a harmonica, then a patient, steady voice counting. Miles drifted toward the sound and paused at the den's threshold. He froze. His father, Henry Whittaker, who had once commanded factory floors with a glance, sat upright in a sturdy chair, cheeks puffed with effort, a harmonica held carefully in both hands. In front of him knelt a woman in scrubs the color of midnight. She tapped rhythm on the carpet with 2 fingers and coached gently. "In through the nose, Mr. Whittaker. Slow exhale. Let the note glide." The note wavered, then steadied. Henry's eyes shone with mischief and focus. When he lowered the harmonica, the woman grinned. "Now that's a whistle I'd follow down a hallway." Miles cleared his throat. "Hi, Dad." Henry blinked, recognition gathered like light sliding across water. "Miles," he breathed, then smiled the old lopsided smile. "Look who wandered home." The woman rose. "Mr. Whittaker, you've got a surprise." "I'm Simone Harris," she added, turning to Miles. "Home care aide and chief harmonica nag." Miles shook her hand, noticing the callus at the base of her thumb and the kind of attention that makes a room feel safe. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You meant to arrive," Simone said. "That counts for a lot around here." Henry chuckled. "She's bossy." "Only when being brave needs a nudge," she replied, then glanced at the clock. "Breathing break. Water, then the crossword we started." Henry handed her the harmonica like a baton. "Don't lose my new lungs," he said. As Simone fetched water, Miles knelt beside his father. "How's today?" "Better than yesterday," Henry said. "Worse than tomorrow, if I do what she says." Simone returned with 2 glasses and a small notebook. "We track wins," she explained. "It sounds silly until it doesn't." Miles looked at the page, slow inhale for 4 counts, held note for 6, 1 laugh at a corny joke. "What's the joke?" "What do you call a harmonica in winter?" Henry asked, already grinning. "I don't know." "A BR-strument," he said, and cracked himself up. Simone shook her head, delighted. They moved to the kitchen where late sun laid bright rectangles on the floor. A pot of chicken soup simmered, steam fogging a window tattooed with sticky notes, medication times, favorite songs, a drawing of a cowboy hat labeled, "Find Henry's Hat." "I didn't know about the harmonica," Miles said. "Pulmonary rehab by stealth," Simone answered. "Music makes the work forget its work." He glanced at the calendar where Simone's block letters filled the days: porch steps practice, story hour, haircut Friday. "You came without notice," Simone said, pouring soup. "That's good. Surprises can tell the truth about a house." "What truth have you found?" he asked. "That he needs company at supper, that he's stubborn about hats, and that mornings are kinder than evenings," she said. "Also, he doesn't like the news unless the weather is in it." Henry slurped soup like a boy. "Sit and eat, Miles. You look like stock prices." They ate. Conversation took the slow road, porch repairs, the neighbor's beagle, the way winter sun puts a blade on every shadow. When Simone rose to clear bowls, he moved to help. She waved him back. "You and Mr. Whittaker take the sunroom. I'll bring tea. We've got a puzzle with your name on it." In the sunroom, a jigsaw sprawled across the table, sky pieces gathered in a hopeful pile. Henry touched the picture on the box, a lighthouse against a storm. "We used to build model cars," he said. "You always let me paint the stripes crooked," Miles replied. "You were 6, Henry said. And I was patient because your mother asked me to be. Miles's gaze drifted to a canvas propped by the window. Someone, Henry, maybe Simone, had been painting loose blue waves, each stroke a breath made visible. Simone set down a tray, tea, shortbread, and a small plastic bag filled with colored paper strips. Breathing tools, she said. We cut wishes when the day feels heavy. Write one and blow it toward the window like a paper ship. Henry chose a strip and wrote, in shaky letters, take my son to the river, even if it's just the park fountain. Miles swallowed. From a folder beneath the puzzle, Miles's number peeked out on a printout of care plans, and beneath that, a tidy stack of receipts. He wasn't looking for proof, but there it was, extra evening hours, pharmacy runs, grocery deliveries, paid, noted, initialed. On the top receipt Henry had scrawled, worth every penny I ever saved. Heat climbed Miles's neck, a prickle of shame met a wave of relief. Thank you, he said to Simone. It came out smaller than he meant. She tilted her head. You're here, she said. Let that be step one. Henry dozed. Afternoon light softened. Simone lowered her voice. He's asked about the river every Thursday. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow, Miles said, surprising himself with how certain it sounded. She nodded. I'll pack sandwiches. He's partial to egg salad with too much pepper. He smiled. That's my fault. Good, she said. People should get to keep their faults. A clock in the hallway ticked like a steady heart. Miles's phone buzzed with a meeting reminder. He silenced it and slid the phone face down. Outside, a train horn braided with the wind. He thought of how many times he'd watched cities pass beneath him while real life practiced patience without him. The night was still awake when Miles laid on the old guest bed. Ceiling beams carried the groan of age, and somewhere a radiator clicked like a metronome. He couldn't close his eyes, not after what Simone had said about the will, about a promise made decades ago. He rose, padded barefoot to the kitchen, and found her at the table with a stack of folders. A desk lamp pooled yellow light across receipts, medical charts, and a binder labeled Legacy. You don't sleep? He asked quietly. She looked up. Sometimes the house needs someone awake. Miles slid into the chair across from her. The folders smelled faintly of pencil shavings. You said my father asked you to bring up his will if I came home unannounced. Why that condition? Simone folded her hands. Because he knew if you arrived by surprise, it meant you weren't here on duty. You'd be here as his son, not his shareholder. Miles pressed his palms together. I'm listening. She opened the binder. Inside were copies of Henry's estate documents, neatly tabbed. He asked me to tell you this, the money and the company aren't the parts he wants to survive him. He's been setting aside something else, letters, photographs, recordings, even a journal he's kept since your mother passed. He called it the living will. His request is that you carry that forward, not just the assets. Miles frowned. A living will isn't. I know, Simone interrupted gently. Not the legal kind. The breathing kind. The words dug under his ribs. He glanced at the envelopes in the sunroom, at the puzzle box waiting. And what am I supposed to do with it? Read it. Share it. Let it soften you. He believes you'll know how when the time comes. Silence stretched. Outside, the wind rubbed tree branches against the siding like a reminder of how seasons refused to wait. Tomorrow, Miles said, we'll take him to the park. Then you'll show me everything in that binder. Simone nodded. Tomorrow. Morning arrived with birds rehearsing in the maple outside. Miles woke to the scent of bacon and found Henry already dressed, wearing a flannel shirt tucked too neatly into khakis. Simone adjusted his suspenders. Field trip day, Henry announced with a grin. Miles packed a picnic basket while Simone checked medication bottles twice. Soon they were in the car, sunlight slipping across the windshield. Henry hummed a slow tune that wandered between hymns and jazz. At Laurel Park, the firefighter statue gleamed bronze in the morning light. Children clambered at its base while parents sipped coffee on benches. Miles guided Henry to the fountain, where water leapt like clear laughter. "This is it," Henry whispered, eyes damp. "Your mother loved the sound of this fountain. Said it drowned out every worry." Simone spread a blanket. They ate sandwiches, Henry insisting on 2 helpings of peppery egg salad. At one point, Henry tapped his cane against the ground and said, "Miles, hold your hand out." Miles obeyed. His father set the harmonica in his palm. "Learn it," Henry said. "When I can't play, you will." Miles swallowed hard. "Dad, I—" "No excuses," Henry interrupted. "Music's cheaper than therapy." Simone chuckled softly. They lingered until clouds began to gather. On the way back, Henry fell asleep, mouth slightly open, hands folded like a prayer. Back home, Simone tucked him into the recliner. Miles stood at the doorway, watching his father breathe, each rise and fall a fragile victory. "He's weaker than he lets on," Simone said quietly. "But days like today give him weeks more." Miles turned to her. "How long do you think he has?" She didn't answer immediately. Time isn't numbers on a chart. It's stories left untold. He still has some to give. That evening, Miles opened the box of letters. The first envelope bore his name in his mother's graceful hand. Inside, she had written about the day he was born, about how Henry's voice cracked when he first held him. The words blurred as Miles read. He felt Simone's presence at the doorway but didn't look up. When he finally did, he whispered, "How do I do this? How do I hold both, the company, the family, the weight of it?" Simone's gaze was steady. "By remembering that one isn't worth anything without the other." Her words sank like stones in water, rippling outward. A week passed. Miles canceled meetings, let his deputies run the board. He stayed in the cedar-framed house, learning the harmonica clumsily, helping his father shuffle puzzle pieces, sitting through nights when pain stole Henry's sleep. One midnight, Henry spoke in the dark. "You know, your mother worried you'd grow too sharp. Said glass towers cut people if they live in them too long." Miles, half asleep, asked, "And what did you say?" "I said even sharp things can carve beauty if guided by love," Henry murmured. "Don't forget that, son." The next morning, Henry couldn't lift the harmonica. His hands shook too much. He handed it to Miles with a quiet nod. Miles played one ragged note, off-key, trembling. Henry smiled anyway. Later, Simone brought out the binder again. "There's more," she said. She flipped to a sealed envelope labeled for Miles. He opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a short note. "If you are reading this, I am gone or nearly gone. Don't lead the company alone. Find people you trust. Remember, legacy isn't dollars. It's laughter at a fountain, music on tired lungs, letters that keep telling stories. Carry those forward. That's the only inheritance I care about. Signed, simply, Dad." Miles pressed the note to his forehead, tears spotting the ink. Simone laid a hand on his shoulder. "He trusted you enough to wait for your unannounced return. That means he believed you'd choose heart over habit." Miles nodded, unable to speak. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle, insistent, like a song learning its melody. The days grew shorter. Henry's strength ebbed, but his humor never left. He told the harmonica joke one last time, laughing until he coughed, then patted Miles's hand. On his final morning, sun filled the room in soft gold. He whispered, "Worth every penny, every breath. Don't freeze anymore, son. Live." Then he closed his eyes. Miles sat by him, harmonica in hand, and let one note rise. It trembled, but it carried. Simone stood in the doorway, tears bright, and whispered, "That's a whistle worth following." The house exhaled. Weeks later, the boardroom looked different to Miles. He no longer filled silence with numbers. He told his team about patience, about lighthouses, about paper wishes blown toward windows. Some frowned, some smiled. He didn't mind. At home, he kept the cedar-framed house open, its porch swing moving with the wind. Children from the neighborhood came for story hours Simone hosted. The fountain in the park became a place he visited weekly, harmonica in pocket. He carried forward not just wealth but warmth. The living will of a man who believed stories outlast systems. And when doubt froze him, Miles remembered his father's final words, "Don't freeze anymore. Live." And so he did.